Hello everyone, this is Giraffe. Today we are going to continue talk about the three body. The target of the Trisolarians, the aliens in the novel, was the one called Liu Cixin. He is a university professor. He is not famous, which makes his selection as a target puzzling. Liu Cixin is an intelligent but aimless scholar. He was a high school classmate of Ye Wenjie's daughter, initially studying the unprofitable field of astronomy. He later switched to sociology. Before her arrest, Ye Wenjie had a final conversation with him. In a moment of deep complexity, despite her hatred for humanity, she showed a flicker of hesitation about its total destruction. She suggested him combine his two fields in a new discipline, cosmic sociology. She told him this new science must be built on two fundamental axioms. The first one, survival is the primary need of civilization. Nothing is more important. The second, the total mass of the universe is constant. This means resources are finite. She also mentioned two concepts to explore: the chain of suspicion and technological explosion. Meanwhile, knowing they have 400 years until the Trisolarians' invasion, humanity unites as never before. The concept of nations begins to fade as Earth becomes a single, cohesive entity, sharing technology and resources to build a defense. However, a critical problem remains: the cell phones. These particles allow the Trisolarians to spy on every human technological advancement. As the ancient Chinese strategist Sun Tzu said, if you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the results of 100 battles. The Trisolarians know themselves and they know us. But the people of the earth do not know the Trisolarians. Therefore, to fight against the Trisolarians, we had to hide our battle plans. But where? The only place the Trisolarians cannot see is the human brain. So humanity created a project called Warfacer Project. The plan was to choose 4 especially brilliant humans. They would formulate a battle plan entirely within their own minds. They could not tell anyone about their true plan. They were allowed to speak, but anything they said were considered to be a deception, a lie to trick the Trisolarians. The true plan must be known only to them. If their true plan became known to others, their identity as a warfacer would be revoked. They would have failed. The 4 warfacers didn't know each other's plans. They thought by themselves. Why was there 4? Because if even one succeeded, it would be enough. The warfacers are granted the highest authority in the whole world. They could mobilize the military and use any resources on Earth. The 4 chosen were a former US Secretary of Defense, the world's top brain scientists, the president of Venezuela, and Liu Cixin. When Liu Cixin was chosen as a warfacer, he was shocked. Why me? He was so different from the other 3. And he didn't even know the Trisolarians wanted to kill him. After the warfacers were selected, they began their plans. The United Nations arranged for strong military protection for all 4. Indeed, after the project started, the other 3 immediately began thinking of ways to deal with the Trisolarians. Only Liu Cixin was stuck. He didn't know what to do and had no idea what ability he possessed to fight the Trisolarians. So he thought, how about I use this chance to enjoy life? He wanted fancy cars, a house, beauty, everything. But from an outsider's perspective, they view his actions as part of his grand, indestructible plan. So no one could oppose him, and no one dared to, because he had the highest authority. After the Trisolarians learned of the Warfacer projects, they arranged for agents to encounter them. The agents were called war breakers. The result was just one could expect. The war breakers destroyed the plans of the 3 warfacers, all except for Liu Cixin. The first warfacer, the former US Secretary of Defense, had a plan to build a weapon called ball lightning. This weapon could hit a human and change them into a ghost state. The person would die, but would transform into a ghost-like entity that could continue to fight. He thought that by using this ghost form, they might be able to fight the Trisolarians. It was so cruel that he thought he couldn't ask for volunteers in advance. Instead, he planned to suddenly attack our own forces just before the battle with the Trisolarians, turning our own people into ghosts. He realized that no one would be willing to be turned into a ghost so the only option was to hate ourselves, to transform our own forces. He planned to use this ghost army to fight the Trisolarians. However, his plan was discovered by his wall breaker and posted on the internet. The public was horrified and began to protest, asking, "How can you attack your own people? This is too cruel." Under this immense social pressure, he ultimately committed suicide. The second wall-facer was the leading brain scientist. Together with his wife, he created a technology called the thought seal, which could implant an unshakable belief directly into a human mind, a form of brainwashing. His plan was to use the thought seal to implant one core conviction in the minds of humanity military. Human would definitely win. After learning about the Trisolarian invasion, humanity's society was filled with fear. Most people didn't believe we could win, leading to a severe lack of fighting spirit. Even with spirit, our abilities was far inferior, but without the will to fight, we stood no chance. The thought seal was meant to be the theoretical solution to this problem. However, it was later revealed that the brain scientist's wife, his partner in creating the technology, was actually his wall breaker. She had sabotaged the device. The belief implanted by the thought seal was not human would definitely win, but its opposite, humanity would definitely fail. This corrupted thought seal had already been used on a number of military leaders and soldiers. Since the process was done secretly, this meant that hidden within the humanity military was a significant number of soldiers who deeply believed in humanity's inevitable defeat. These individuals were highly likely to suddenly switch sides or surrender during a future battle within the Trisolarians, creating a massive hidden danger. Therefore, this wall-facer's plan was not only broken but also twisted into a powerful weapon for the Trisolarians. The third wall-facer was the president of Venezuela. He was a war fanatic. His plan was to create 1 million stellar bombs, similar to atomic or hydrogen, but not to bomb the Trisolarians or even Earth itself. Instead, he planned to bomb Mercury. His goal was to blast Mercury out of its orbit. Once Mercury was knocked off its trajectory, it would cause a chain reaction, pulling Earth out of its own orbit and causing it to fall into the Sun, destroying both Earth and the Trisolarian fleet. The final purpose was mutual destruction, to destroy the Trisolarians by destroying ourselves. In theory, this plan had a chance to save Earth. Based on the art of war by Sun Tzu, if you can destroy your enemy's purpose for fighting, the war might not happen. The Trisolarians' essential goal is to occupy Earth, not just to kill humans. If we show them we are willing to destroy Earth, that if they come, we will commit suicide and take the planet with them, they might not come. Later, his plan was destroyed by the Trisolarians. After analyzing it, they concluded that the plan was absolutely meaningless. Their calculations show that 1 million stellar bombs were not enough to knock Mercury out of orbit. Furthermore, Earth simply didn't have enough resources to build 1 million of these bombs in the first place. And just as we predicted, Liu Cixin turned out to be the most formidable war-facer. Liu Cixin had a deep understanding of the dark forest, laws of the universe. His plan was not complicated. He randomly selected a star and broadcast its coordinates out into the cosmos. After sending this signal, he entered a frozen state to hibernate for hundreds of years. He gave one instruction: "Wake me up when the star is destroyed." 185 years later, Liu Cixin woke up from his frozen capsule. The Earth had changed dramatically. Humanity had acquired mature gene editing technology, so everyone was incredibly handsome and beautiful. Since the other three war-facers' plan had been destroyed, humanity had abandoned war-facer project. Liu Cixin was no longer a war-facer. During that time, human technology had developed very rapidly. They had built 2,000 super battleships, all powered by nuclear fusion and capable of reaching 15% of the speed of light. This technology was even more advanced than the Trisolarians' level 185 years prior. Because of this, people on Earth were confident they could win against the Trisolarians. Just as Liu Cixin was starting to learn about this new world, a sudden crisis occurred. Despite having a fleet of over 2,000 battleships, one of them suddenly fled from Earth. What happened? The captain of that ship deeply believed that humanity was incapable of winning the war. The moment command was handed over to him, his first action was to run away from Earth because he convinced humanity would definitely fail. After he fled, humanity immediately dispatched 4 battleships to pursue him. At the same time, the Trisolarian Vanguard Force, a tiny water drop-like detector, entered our solar system. When humans discovered it, we immediately assembled an entire fleet of 2,000 battleships. The Trisolarians sent this little tiny thing, and we, humans, mobilized 2,000 battleships. After the probe arrived, humanity captured it for study. Scientists soon discovered something strange. The probe's density was enormously high, and it was made of an incredible hard material. Scientists suddenly realized, oh no, the Trisolarians' technology is far more advanced than ours. Before humanity could react, the probe suddenly accelerated. In a matter of seconds, it smashed through the engines of over 100 human battleships. The ships began to explode like fireworks. The battleships at the back couldn't see the tiny probe flying through the fleet. They only saw the ships in front of them constantly exploding. Panicked, they tried to flee, but most failed. In the end, only 2 battleships from the original fleet of 2,000 managed to escape the battlefield. In total, only 7 human battleships remained: the 2 that fled the battle, the 1 that originally deserted, and the 4 that were sent to chase it. Only 7 ships were left. The Trisolarians used 1 single super hard probe to destroy almost our entire fleet. While the 5 ships, the deserter and its 4 pursuers, were still in deep space, they received news that Earth had likely already been occupied by the Trisolarians. They decided they could not return and would instead become the last hope for humanity. However, they faced a grim calculation to reach the nearest star. None of the 5 ships had enough fuel or supplies to make it on their own. The only solution was to centralize all the fuel and supplies from all 5 ships onto a single ship. Furthermore, they could not sustain the entire population. Only the people on 1 ship could survive. It was at this moment the chain of suspicion began among the 5 battleships. All the battleships were armed with a weapon called subsonic hydrogen bomb. This weapon had a unique effect. When it hit a ship, the ship itself wouldn't be damaged, and the items inside would remain intact. However, every single person inside would be killed. Because of this, the fleeing battleship was preparing to turn back and attack the ships chasing it, as it needed their resources. But just as it was about to attack, one of the pursuing ships struck first, killing everyone on board. This triggered a chaotic chain reaction. The 5 battleships began to attack each other, all for the same reason: to seize the other's resources for survival. In the end, only 1 ship survived. This proved a grim truth. Whether they were allies or enemies, when faced with a survival crisis, everyone becomes an equal threat, and mutual destruction is almost inevitable. The sole surviving ship gathered all the remaining resources and prepared to fly to the closest star. Meanwhile, of the 2 battleships that had escaped the initial probe attack near Earth, they also fell victim to the chain of suspicion. One destroyed the other, and after the destruction, it fled alone. The pattern repeated everywhere. Back on Earth, with the fleet destroyed, the people on Earth were plunged into complete despair. The technological gap with the Trisolarians was simply too vast. And yet, the main Trisolarian fleet hadn't even arrived. They had only sent a single droplet probe. The main invasion force was still 200 years away. At this point, many people felt that since the doomsday was certain in 2,000 years, how about let's enjoy life now? But then something happened that gave people hope again. It was related to Liu Cixin. Before he entered hibernation, he had sent the coordinates of a star into the universe. At the same time, the Trisolarians were attacking Earth. That very star was suddenly and mysteriously destroyed. This event verifies that the dark forest theory was true. If you broadcast a star's location to the universe, a more advanced civilization, fearing that a life form might exist there, will simply destroy it. At that moment, Liu Cixin knew how to fight back. He held a gun with his own heart and demanded to speak with the Trisolarans. He issued an ultimatum: if I die, a dead person's switch will release the location of your home world to the entire universe. After Liu Cixin had deduced the law of dark forest, he had set up a device linked to his heartbeat. The moment his heart stops, this device will automatically broadcast the Trisolaran star's coordinates. Upon receiving Liu Cicin's message, the Trisolarans replied in just 1 second. Let's talk. The specifics of their conversation aren't important. The result was that the Trisolarans completely submitted to human demands. Liu Cixin laid out his terms. First, your fleet must turn away from the solar system. You cannot invade Earth. The Trisolarans agreed. Okay, as long as you do not broadcast our location into the universe. Then here, we need to introduce the law of the dark forest. This entire standoff is based on the dark forest theory of the universe. The rules are as follows. First, the university is the dark forest. Every civilization is an armed hunter, moving stealthily through the trees. It is too dark to see anyone else. The only way to survive in this forest is to remain silent and never expose your own location. You must develop your technology in secret to become stronger. The third, if you expose your location, a hunter will inevitably come to eliminate you. As long as you are not the absolute strongest, you will be destroyed. For this theory to hold true, several conditions must be met. First, survival is the primary need of any civilization. Second, the total resources in the universe are finite. If resources were infinite, there would be no need to fight. Technology explosion. A civilization's technology can advance at an exponential rate. A seemingly primitive society would suddenly leapfrog ahead and become a major threat. Next, the chain of suspicion. In the darkness, two civilizations can never truly know each other's intentions. You can never be sure if they are friendly or if they will attack you the moment they can. This inherent distrust makes preemptive strikes the safest logical choice. Our own Earth, with its history of conflict and competition, is a perfect environment for understanding this dark forest logic. The three-body problem indirectly teaches us a method to survive in such an environment. Since dark forest is everywhere, the most essential rule is to hide yourself. You must conceal your abilities and intentions. This is very similar to the wisdom in the art of war. Know your enemies thoroughly, but ensure they know as little about you as possible. So at this point, the Trisolarans were thoroughly controlled by humanity. The threat was simple: if you do not behave, we will broadcast your location into the universe. Of course, this was a double-edged sword. Broadcasting the Trisolarans' location would inevitably also reveal Earth's location, as the two stars are in close cosmic proximity. This concludes the first two parts of the story, with humanity achieving its first major triumph. And the third book is called The Death's End. And about this, we will share in the next episode. See you next time!